here we are, and this is us going live right now officially.
Okay.
This is Burnham Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Burnham, and with me tonight is Mr.
Dominic Romano.
Dominic Romano. And you on the couch. What's your name?
This is over here at Tango.
The producer, y'all. Dominic, man, it's great to have you on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We talked about this in a Facebook post a year or more ago.
Okay.
I needed a guest suddenly, and you said, hey, I'll do it, sometime or whatever. Now here we are a year or more later, finally getting around to it.
Yeah.
But it's cool to have you on. What brought you to my attention I know you otherwise, but what made me think of having you as a guest on the podcast is that you're always banging this readiness drum.
Yeah.
And you make your Facebook posts and your videos and all the things about getting ready and doing these things. What are we getting ready for?
That's I'm not one to say like, oh, the end of the world's coming or it's an apocalypse, but just getting ready for, anything that can come. Natural disaster, a dramatic change. You look at everything that's going on in the nation right now, there's no idea telling what is going to come tomorrow. So it's like we had mentioned, North Carolina. That came on them, so suddenly that so many people were unprepared for that.
Right.
It could be the port strike, that happened too. It could be anything economic, political, natural disaster, stuff like that. Just always having that mindset to have enough, stuff on hand, have a game plan for if something were to go south, how would you react? And be ready for that.
Well, that's what you're not shy about posting those things anytime, but it always kind of ramps up when, like right before the port strike, or we thought there was going to be a port strike, and you made some videos, and you're going, "Hey, this goes down, it's going to be bad. You're going to want to be ready."
Yeah.
So it's not something for most people. It's in the back of their mind, but it seems like it's in the front of yours. Mm-hmm. So what was it that got you to this mindset?
I don't know if it was my dad. Growing up, he was always the conspiracy theorist and, trying to be ready and watchful of things. Or if it was my time in the military, always just trying to be ready, I went to wilderness survival school to become an instructor. So, that probably plays into it also, just having that knowledge and know-how to be able to survive in worst case scenarios. So,
yeah. Well, that was one of my questions was going to be, where did you learn all this stuff? You went to wilderness survival school. What was that like?
It was fun. When I was in the Air Force, I tried to cross-train into SEER, which is, survival and other things, and I got denied. And so when I got out of the military, I figured, hey, I can find survival schools. And so when I lived in Texas, I went to a weekend camp, and that was pretty fun with Earth Native Wilderness School in Bastrop. And then when I went to Florida, I found a retired SEER instructor named Byron Kearns, and he actually had a week-long instructor course in Ellijay. And so we drove up to Ellijay and did that course, and he's since moved to Madison, but he still has his school. So
So you and he were both in Florida at the time.
Yeah.
And you came to Georgia. That's funny. Did you leave Georgia after that? Because you're still in Georgia now.
No, we actually went back to Florida because that's where we were living.
Yeah.
And we were living in Clearwater at the time.
Okay.
And our landlord had upped our rent for like the second time in a year, and it was just getting too expensive to live. Mm-hmm. And so I told my wife, I said, we need to find a new place to move. And so I said, why don't you go check out North Georgia? I was just up there. Ellijay's beautiful.
Yeah.
She drove to Rome, stayed a week up here, and we ended up finding a house in Shannon. And so while she was up here that week, I was packing the house, and we said, see you later. And
just like that.
Yeah, drove up here. And then 2017 is when we moved here. Mm-hmm. And then we lived in Shannon for a few years. Then we finally bought a house out in Armurchie in 2020.
Okay. So I know you. I met you through Trail Life.
Yeah.
At what point did you guys get involved with that?
I would say it was that same year.
The same year, 2021?
2017.
Okay, same year you moved up, not the same year that I met.
It was either that year or 2018, but it was really short after we got here.
Okay. So the same sort of thing drew you to that?
Yeah, well, actually, I think but we are Messianic.
Right.
And so we used to go to a synagogue in Tampa, and my rabbi was telling me about Trail Life. He's like, you got to go work with Trail Life. And I never found one in Florida, but when we got up here, we heard about Trail Life and AHG, and I was like, oh man, I got to get plugged in and see what this is all about. And then we joined. So.
That's awesome. And you brought all these skills with you, which is just fantastic for the boys.
Yeah. I love teaching it to them. Wish I was with the older boys sometimes so we can get more hands-on.
Yeah.
But every once in a while I get to interact with them. But even the young dudes, love some of the stuff that we do.
That, and you'll get to come up with those guys.
Yeah.
As long as you guys stay in it. And by the time your guy is one of the older boys, you'll just be with them. And they'll know you, and they'll trust your knife skills by then.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, you recently spent some time in Burnsville, North Carolina.
Yes.
What was that like?
It was interesting. It was fun, rewarding, exhausting.
Yeah.
I can't believe that water can destroy like that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was when you're walking down a road and then it's just gone. The guardrails ripped off, I-beams twisted like bread ties.
Yeah.
I mean, sheer destruction. And it was just very eye-opening that, people are enduring so much right now up there, and it's just unfortunate. So,
Water is so unforgiving, and we talked about this on this podcast a couple of weeks ago. How everything up there is in what they call a hollow, or they don't. It's the mountains, but they don't build at the top of the hill; they build at the bottom.
Yeah,
and it just creates a giant funnel when you have so much rain and things. And the force of water is just so unforgiving.
Yeah,
that it rips up asphalt and
like it was never even there.
Yeah.
Like where civilization once was, now there's like no trace of it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to see.
Jeez, So what was the atmosphere where you were in Burnsville?
So we were at a parking lot of the Roses. It was like a discount store and a grocery store. And I guess one of the locals just she said she was, called by God to come and like start trying to collect supplies to give to the community. And through a different congregation that I'm in contact with, they put us in touch with a group on Telegram from Ellijay, and they told us that they had contacts in Burnsville. And so I was like, hey, we're going to get a truckload of supplies. We're going to roll up there. We had our kids go stay at a friend's house. Our dogs went to another friend's house in Alabama, and my neighbor watched all the farm animals we have. And so it worked out perfect. They were on fall break, and so we're like, let's go.
Yeah.
And so we went up there, and, basically we camped out in a parking lot, and every day we woke up and just moving supplies, getting people from all over the nation coming to drop off donations. We had 12 trucks from New York, trailers filled with diapers and clothes and water and propane tanks and chainsaws, and it's just crazy to see the outpouring of love that people had. People from Canada were coming, and Alaska.
Wow.
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah.
So did you guys see the truck house guy? Did he come through?
Truck house that doesn't. Maybe he did. I don't know.
If you saw him, you would know, because he's got a giant truck, a house that rides around on the back of his. He's got a big diesel Ford.
Okay. It doesn't.
He's built this log cabin on the back of his truck. It's really,
no,
he's
I
a
did not see
YouTuber.
that.
Okay. I was watching one of his videos, and he went through Burnsville. He's from Alaska, and he drove all the way down to help out because he's search and rescue certified, however that works, whatever it is. That was just a rabbit trail.
Well, there was a guy in Burnsville from Alaska, so it may have been him. I don't know.
May have just not seen his truck.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So I thought it was interesting that you made a point in one of your videos that this wasn't a bunch of organizations.
Correct.
And it wasn't even churches. Churches were in bad shape up there too. They couldn't do anything, but these were just people.
These were just people coming together, and there was frustrations like working with some people.
Yeah.
But through that, we all worked together to meet this need. One lady that we worked hand in hand with, her name was Whitney, and she's from Cartersville. We found out that she was given an address, and she went, and basically they ended up putting us in charge of the little warehouse. There was like an empty Dollar General, and so we used that space to start organizing all the donations we got. And then when the supply line needed, more food or more diapers, we would build a pallet, get the pallet jack, and drag it down there for them. And I mean, the way it just flowed though was incredible.
So was there anybody, quote unquote, in charge, or did you guys just see the need and get after it?
That's kind of how it was.
Yeah.
There was one lady, Stephanie, who, from what I was told, she's the one who kind of started it.
Right.
But she wasn't like ordering people around. So there was no like head honcho. One time the traffic was getting backed up because there were so many people coming in to get supplies that this sheriff or whoever it was of Yancey County came up and got out of his truck all mad and like super irate because the traffic was backed up. And he's like, what organization are you with? And I was like, I'm not with any org. I'm just some dude from Georgia, bro. Like, sorry, I got your traffic backed up. But he was upset. But he was asking, like, who's in charge? And we're like, well, no one's in charge.
Nobody's in charge.
Yeah.
That's
so pretty,
awesome, though.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one thing for big groups to show up and roll out their $1 million budget and start doing things. And that's great. There's a place for that, too. But it was really cool to hear that it was just people, just one guy from here or one lady from there that had come in and gotten together and were just pitching into this effort with no direction at all.
Or even, sometimes experience and disaster relief or doing this kind of work. It was, truly, I think, a calling from God that all those people were there and, only he could have made it flow the way it did.
Yeah. Well, it was cool that's the way it went. And that can only be God that orchestrates that, and it's everybody doing just what needs to be done and not waiting on orders or giving orders or anything in between. You just see the need and you meet it. And that was really cool that you were kind of pointing all that stuff out. There's not a lot of media flow from there besides, like overhead shots and things or negative stories about FEMA and stuff like that. But as far as on the ground stuff, you were our news guy there, while you were there, and we were kind of seeing what was going on. But it was really cool to hear that that's how it went down. Yeah. And you weren't waiting for big budgets to show up.
No, we were just waiting. And I mean, every 30 minutes a truck would roll in. You guys taking donations? Yeah. What do you got? Like, I can't take any clothes because the clothes was overwhelming. But, if they had stuff and they drove from, West Virginia or something, come on, help me unload and we'll get it done. So,
Well, clothes, the first thing I think that so many people think of when there's a flood or a tornado and people on a large scale lose everything, everybody wants to do clothes. We did clothes. We sent a bunch of clothes up to a different place. But clothes become an anchor. Like a anchor at some point that just slows down the entire operation because if they're not sorted and sized and all that stuff, somebody's got to do all that before you can start distributing them. So, like, don't just empty out your closets when you hear of a disaster. You can send a bunch of clothes up there. Like, you guys needed to be sorting water and food and diapers and chainsaws and doing all these things instead of tying up all of your manpower into figuring out what size this sweater is. Yeah. But that's just a side note as well, because I've been on the ground in some places like that before, and clothes become a burden.
Oh, yeah. They were just strewn out across the sidewalk, and when people weren't in the supply line, they would park in the parking lot and then go over to the clothes and then just, rummage through them and just leave it all disarrayed. And it's like we don't have enough manpower to even go and clean that up, or we're so busy trying to get our supplies organized that we can't even focus on that.
The best you can do is just spread it out and hope for the best. Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know. I've been the guy in the floodwater before up to my waist, doing the hero work, I think is what you called it. But then it's equally as important to be the guy who's sorting and stacking cases of bottled water and gasoline and generators and stuff like that. And
because when we went up there, that's what we wanted to do was search and rescue.
Everybody wants to.
Oh, yeah. And there was a group, I wore their shirt today, Christian Rangers, that were up there. And this was started by, I think it was like 12 ex-military dudes who saw a need, and they had some equipment, they had some communication equipment, and they rolled up and they started doing search and rescue. And it kind of blew up into this cool organization that they started a Facebook page. I don't know if they went LLC'd or incorporated or not, but they grew up to this massive thing where people were coming in from out of state saying, I want to help the Christian Rangers and stuff like that. And so instead of going with them, I was more of a contact between them and like what they started doing when the search and rescue kind of slowed down and not so much of that was happening. What they would do is, people had side-by-sides out there, like the whole parking lot was filled with side-by-sides because they can get into the roads when trucks couldn't. And so they would find a community that was trapped or, couldn't access the supply line, And so they would say, hey, what do you guys need? You know, we hear that you guys need this, this, that. Okay, hey, I've got this over at the warehouse. Let's get you guys the supplies. And, you know, kind of working in tandem with them. You know, we got insulin in, and my wife came. She's an RN. And we thought that there was going to be a need for an insulin run out to somebody in the community. But the information was 24 hours old. We didn't know if that was still needed to be met.
Yeah.
And we had no place to store the insulin. And so we ended up having to run it down to the fire department. So it was just, you know, a cool experience all around. So
what was the flow of information like up there?
The communication definitely needed work, for sure. But, you know, we all had walkie-talkies, FRS. I brought my GMRS radios up, and so we were able to communicate throughout the supply line. You know, that was good. Intel-wise, basically, if a family member said, hey, I got family in this such and such town, you know, they need help, they would forward that on to somebody that they knew was in location. And even in that Telegram group I was in, somebody posted, like, there's a family in Burnsville. And so I went over to the Christian Rangers and said, hey, can we get somebody down this road? And they were collecting intel on what roads were passable and which ones weren't. And they had maps and everything. So we knew, okay, we can get to these people. And so we would get them the propane tanks they needed, the water, the food, and then they would roll out on a mission and go take care of it. And a lot of it you had to wait till after 5 because a lot of the roads were closed by the police. And they closed it during the day so the heavy equipment can get in there and work without having traffic coming and going. But they would open it back up at 5. And so a lot of missions rolled out in the evening time so we wouldn't interfere with, you know, road construction crews.
Right. Well, I wasn't sure just because, you know, there you can go miles and miles and all the power poles are down. You know, there's no cell service. I wasn't sure how, people were sending out pigeons or how word was getting to. Because, I mean, there's some places up there that are just remote, you know, and I was thinking about Florida, who most recently had Milton go through. Well, like, you're never more than an hour from the water in Florida, which means you're never more than an hour from some people with a lot of money whose power is not going to stay out very long. So, like, you're not that remote. But North Carolina is a different story. Yeah.
You know, I feel for the people, you know, that suffered through Milton.
Sure.
But it doesn't compare to what happened in North Carolina, for sure. But, yeah.
I was telling somebody the other day that Florida has hurricanes. It's what they do down there. And they have a hurricane, they rebuild. But it's flat. Everything's flat there. Yeah. And palm trees don't fall over the same way that pine trees do and destroy things. And
you don't have to worry about landslides.
Yeah. Well, that was a big deal, right? Like, mud just washing away, and the
half of a mountain just come crashing down into the holler. I never heard the word holler so much.
Holler?
Yeah, because that's what it is.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in West Virginia. I've heard it a few times.
Yeah. But I mean, both are a disaster. But you know, North Carolina, that it's just unbelievable.
It's just that type of thing doesn't happen there at all, and certainly not on this scale.
Right. Yeah, I think you've seen the a couple years ago I posted a video of my property and the flood that happened there. And after seeing what happened in North Carolina, I'm going to get a quote on flood insurance because
absolutely,
if that happens with 6 to 10 inches of rain at my property, well, if we ever got the rain that they had, 30, 40 inches of rain plus, I could experience the same thing because we're at the bottom of a mountain,
foot of a mountain.
Yeah, so it's kind of opened my eyes up to that possibility too. It's like, you know, is it worth it? Yes, maybe. I don't know. So it's one of those things you got to...
It's worth it if you don't have it, you know?
Yeah.
That'll be the time when you need it.
Yeah, I don't want to be sitting there saying, man, I wish I had flood insurance when,
you're watching your house float away.
Yeah. So...
Yeah. But I mean, if it happened in North Carolina, it's not so impossible to believe that it could happen to us here in Northwest Georgia.
Yeah, because if Helene took just a more of a
the way that it was supposed to go to start with.
Yeah. If it would have come up through the, you know, basically on the border of Georgia and Alabama, we could have experienced, you know, some of that, but maybe not in that scale.
Right.
But flooding for sure.
Still bad enough.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason we have all these levees in this town because we used to just flood and be underwater for weeks at a time. And flood insurance for sure. We've got it. We're not a whole mile from the river the way the crow flies. And there's not a levee between us and the river. They tell us that 1,000 years ago, the river ran through where our house is now, and it's kind of worked its way over to where it is. But It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
If you don't have it already.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So with the prepper mindset, with the survivalist mindset, how does somebody get ready for something like that?
Oh, man. A flood in particular? Or
yeah, I mean, a flood, rain for 10 days at a time. We get the rainy seasons around here, and we see flooding sometimes. But what do you do to get ready for that?
Oh, man. I've never experienced a flood. So
yeah.
I just look at what those people are suffering through. A lot of them have no water and at least a minimum of 6 months until they get their water back.
Wow.
So some type of backup water supply, either filtration, sanitation, learn those abilities, have the means to do that. If you have a well, but sometimes the groundwater can get contaminated also. A lot of people don't have power still, and this is weeks now that it's gone. So backup power supply if possible. Food, that's another thing, but you can't save up a whole bunch of food and then a flood come in and take it out,
right.
So maybe having a backup location of where that is, but most people don't have an alternate, home that they can store their things in. So, just seeing what they're going through and trying to kind of compensate in those areas to.
Well, there's just no way to be ready for everything.
Right.
Like you said, you can store a bunch of food up, and that's great if there's a tornado and your road is blocked because trees are down. But otherwise, everything's pretty cool. We can eat what we've got for a few days. But yeah, if the flood comes and washes your food away, then where are you?
Yeah.
So we should all just dig a moat around our house, right? So yeah, I guess there's stuff we can do. So in our neck of the woods, the tornado is the thing.
Yeah.
What have you got for that? So because there's not 6 feet of rain that falls with a tornado, but there's some nasty stuff.
I mean, I don't know how many people have basements here. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. Like, yeah, I think we're in one right now. But our house doesn't have one.
Ours doesn't either.
Yeah, so knowing where to go to, either in your house or outside your house. Like, we have a drainage ditch with a big culvert. I think if that's not rained out, then, get in there somehow.
Right.
But also, too, if a strong enough tornado hits your house, well, any provisions you have in there, are gone also.
Yeah.
So it's...
So a root cellar.
Yeah, a root cellar. My wife's been wanting to do a root cellar too. And so, but in our Murchie, I think the water that is in the ground is like real shallow or, whatever, it stays. I think it's a water table. So we're trying to figure out ways of how we can build a root cellar. And right now we're floating the idea of like a 20-foot Connex buried, half or 3/4 into the ground and mounded up over it with dirt. So we have a place to store, our food, because we do canning and stuff like that. And that way it's kind of protected, from a, it could be a tornado.
Right.
You're not going to take that out. And so I just got to figure out how to waterproof that if it's going to be down in the ground. So are there code issues with that? Oh, I'm sure I don't know.
We can cut this part out if we need to.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah. I haven't looked into permits or anything like that.
Permit, schmermit.
Yeah, I don't know how far you want to go. This is what I do. I love the government. I will obey all laws. Right. But, at the end of the day, I bought that house. It's my property.
Yeah.
If I want to bury a Connex, I'm going to bury a daggone Connex.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not saying there may or may not be one buried in the backyard.
There's definitely not. There's not one, and you guys don't know what this is anyway.
Yeah.
God bless them. But yeah, man, it's a big deal to be ready. And we have had tornadoes. I've lived here my whole life, and I can't tell you how many times we've had tornadoes and didn't have power for days. I remember, 93? We had an ice storm here where there was this much ice on the ground, and it was awful. We didn't have power for a week or more, and it didn't really sink in until recently, and I couldn't even say what really made it come to life for me that we needed to start getting ready for things. And now we've got some water stored up and some food, and we know that if we're expecting the water to be out or something to happen, like we should fill the bathtub up a few days, ahead of time or whatever, and that way you've got some of these things, or catch rainwater or any number of things.
That's why I bought one of those, 300-gallon...
The IBC totes?
Yeah, I bought one of those, and I tore my gutter off and cut it and put it right there on the corner and let it drain in. And, that's for flushing toilets, watering the animals, the garden, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, that's something I thought about. And actually, I learned about it when I was in West Virginia after a really similar situation. They had a bunch of flooding and the whole holler flooded because the river rose up, and washed the town away. But you think about the power going out in a storm like that. The power goes out. That's just what happens. But when you're talking about mudslides, you're talking about the plumbing too.
Yeah.
And you can't flush a toilet. Well, like your need to use the toilet doesn't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something, a lot of people didn't think about until 2020,
Yeah.
when toilet paper was hard to find. And now that's one of the first things that go off the shelf when, we're looking at supply shortages or disruptions. They're like, oh, toilet paper's gone.
Well, it started a couple of weeks ago when they were we got the port strike and everybody ran out and started buying toilet paper. But
yeah.
But if your toilet won't flush, that doesn't matter either.
No.
But one of your videos, you said, hey, we need porta potties up here.
Yeah, that was bad for a couple of days.
Holy smokes. They got 30 people trying to use one porta potty up there.
Yeah. And then it got too nasty. And so somebody just put duct tape around it. It's like, don't even go in there.
Don't even, Holy smokes. What a rotten scenario.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, that could have been your house just as easily if you're stuck out somewhere, and you got to make other plans.
Yeah, that's when you get a shovel and walk out in the woods. Luckily we live in a place to where we can do that. But if you live in town or something, that's why I wanted to get out of the city.
Yeah.
When something goes south, the city's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's what I was watching a video of some people, and I talked about it a couple episodes back. They were passing through Asheville. Didn't really mean to be in Asheville. They got stuck there, and it got scary because people were getting desperate.
Yeah,
power was out. You couldn't get gas for your car. Nobody had cash. The ATM didn't work, and it was getting dangerous.
Yeah,
because somebody was going to rob me because they saw that I had $5 in my hand, and it gets third world really quick.
Yeah, like what you said, people get desperate, and I think like 72 hours until chaos.
Yeah.
Like go 72 hours without your basic infrastructure or food and watch what people do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you start thinking about feeding your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like people do some crazy stuff to make sure their kids get fed.
Yeah. You see your child going hungry?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So be ready so you don't have to rob people, and be ready so you won't get robbed.
Yeah.
But that's the city, though, when things do go sideways and people are piled up on top of each other.
Yeah.
So it's good to be out in the sticks, right?
Yeah. That's why we wanted to move. We're like, get out of here. So,
more people should live in the boonies. We're out in the boonies right now.
Yeah, we are. I love it.
Tango's address is. I'm just kidding, y'all.
I'm not changing. Living in the boonies for the.
I don't blame you, man. I wouldn't either. We don't live in the city, but I can see the city limit sign from my house, and I don't like it.
You're a little too close.
Yeah, a little bit.
My neighbors are far enough away to where I'll walk to them, but
well, part of the problem, my neighbors are my parents, so I'm stuck there because they won't move and they're getting old and I got to take care of them. So I'm stuck where I'm at, or I got to convince them to move with us, and we're not ready for that yet, but we're getting there. So I talked my dad into a generator the other day.
Okay.
Same kind of mindset.
Gas generator?
Getting ready. Yeah.
Okay.
So we got to get ready for stuff when these things happen. You guys have solar at your house?
We got gas, and well, it's not for the house yet. It is a solar generator. We took that up to North Carolina with us, kept it in the car, charged up our radios, our phones, the air mattress. So it charges by solar panel. But that's the next thing I've been looking at all day today is a home unit, so I can back up the home and get off the grid. And so that's kind of where we're floating our next purchase is, how to do this. But I'm not an electrician, so I know
me neither, yeah.
I know nothing of it. But I know there's people out there that can help facilitate this, and so.
So if you got enough, I don't know, Tango, you might know this. How much solar panel coverage would you need to bare minimum power your house?
Depends on how many watts you're running normally in your
Tango
house.
makes solar panels for a living.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work for a solar panel manufacturer.
Well, awesome. I'm glad I'm here.
Connected now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, depending on how many watts you're pulling power-wise.
You're just too far from your mic.
No. Okay. depending on how many like watts you're pulling from like your normal power grid with Georgia Power, you can kind of replace that. Most houses, I want to say, are like running anywhere between 10 and 15 modules, which is a solar panel. But I know the company I work for, we make 595 watt modules, and they're fantastic. But those are the big ones you shove out in the desert to power cities in Las Vegas.
The one unit I was looking at today is the EcoFlow Delta Pro, and it has a kit, and it comes with 10 400 watt solar panels. So you're getting 4,000 watt hours input, not watt hours, watts input to the solar generator. And so, you know, like you said, it's depending on how much watt hours you're using per day, basically. And so basically what the guy said on the video I was watching today is get your highest kilowatt hour month that you've used throughout the year and get a system that will fill that requirement, and you should be good to go.
Okay.
So it's kind of where I'm, instead of getting solar panels for the house and like going with a company, we had somebody come out and they quoted us like $60,000 to go solar, whereas one of these units is like $10,000, and it has the solar, you know, the panels that come with it. It has the battery, the inverter, and you basically tie it into your breaker to where you can switch it to the generator power and off the grid. So you're not like cutting the line, and it's not feeding anything back to the line. So you can turn the grid power off, turn your generator power on, and while you're, you know, it's charging through the day, and you can use it at night, and then when the sun comes up again, it's going to start charging again. And if you have a full sunny day, you're getting 4,000 watts input into that.
Yeah.
And so that's
not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I mean, considering what my power bill is every month, if I paid $10,000 for that system, it would pay for itself in 2 years.
Yeah, and that's why if you instantly cut off the grid power and you're running solely on solar, then take that bill that you would have paid to the power company and just pay it to the generator, and there you go.
Yeah.
And then once you get that, get an extra backup battery. So, because as you're going throughout the day, you're going to fill that generator up, and then there's not going to be anywhere for that power to go. So it's just going to be wasted energy. So then put it into another battery so you have it for at night or during cloudy days, during a storm, stuff like that.
Or wintertime when we just don't have as much sun.
Yeah. And that's why we also, I think you saw, we put a wood burner in a couple of years ago.
Yes, I'm a little bit jealous. I want to do that.
Kill the furnace in the wintertime.
Yeah.
You know, and I look at, you can find so much free wood on Facebook.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Anytime we have a storm, people have free wood.
Yeah, I should have filled up the truck on the way back from North Carolina.
Right, everywhere. Yeah, man, I cut in 2011. We had some pretty serious tornadoes, and I lived next door to my landlord. And we had cut down a ton of trees. He wanted all these trees gone, so I helped him, and he like bailed me out on the rent one month. And we cut and stacked all this wood on, would have been like a Monday or Tuesday, and then like on a Thursday, we had these storms. And like we had this wood sold. People were coming to get it. They were going to pay for it. As far as I know, that wood's still sitting there because there was firewood everywhere. Like the whole county was suddenly covered with free firewood. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I don't know, but wood's not hard to come by.
No, not at all.
Money's
you just got to do the work.
Yeah, get out and cut it and stack the wood. That's why we have kids, right?
Yeah.
So they can.
And it keeps you young too. Keeps you in shape.
Yeah, well, yeah. I can split more wood. It'd be good for me. But man, it's a big deal to be ready, and ready. I guess looks like different things, and people think I've got enough rounds for my handgun that I'm ready. Well, like you can't eat those bullets.
Yeah,
and they're not gonna like light the room or keep the refrigerator running, but
you know, when it comes to, you know, firearms too, people like, I got my M4s, I got 3 of those, and my handguns. It's like, you know, it's all good and all, but just enough for personal defense, and that's it. You're not taking on a military. You're not taking on an army.
Well, I mean, you carry 3 rifles.
Yeah.
I got 2 hands.
Yeah. So that's why it's not. Don't waste so much money on that aspect. Mm-hmm. You know, it's good to have, but put it into other things.
Yeah.
So. I'm thinking more like we live out in the sticks, so like if I want to go shoot a bunny rabbit with a 22, that's gonna be probably my most versatile little firearm.
Yep.
Is a little 22, and I can eat that bunny rabbit or that squirrel.
And that 22 will
And
reach out and touch something too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works
Mm-hmm.
for everything.
So we had the ammo shortage. I don't know. It's been
Yeah.
10 years ago now. And I was reading about a group of, I'm going to call them Eskimos because I forget which tribe or whoever they were with up in northern Canada. And ammo is hard to come by. Well, everybody had 22 rounds. Everybody's got 22 rounds laying around. They were hunting moose. So they would shoot this moose in the knee and like wound it. And then the whole gang would just run up and club it to death and finish it off. So keep your 22 rounds.
Yeah.
They're not useless even against a moose.
There we go.
Just takes a team effort. You know? But yeah, I don't know. Team effort, I guess, is the way to do it. The whole family's involved. I thought it was really cool that you took your whole gang up there.
Yeah. Well, they didn't go. The kids didn't go with us early on.
Oh, you just said that, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah. So we got up there on a Friday evening, and then we were going to leave Wednesday, but we decided to have my wife come back, get the kids. So she left Burnsville Tuesday evening, got them Wednesday morning from our friends, and then drove right back to Burnsville with them. So that way they can experience it. It wasn't such a rough area to where we didn't worry about their safety.
Right.
But they can be involved in helping and seeing, that operation go down.
That's such a big deal, man, for the kids to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, well, Dad thinks this is important. He thought it was important enough to bring us all up here and show us. And now one of these days, it'll be their turn. And they can be the person that's getting the stuff done instead of, I don't know, I'm sure your guys are big enough now they could contribute in some way, I'm sure.
Yeah. Hopefully that instilled in them, a sense to help. And, Levi, he was pulling pallets. He saw the pallet jack and he's like, oh, I can do that. And so I let him try, and sure enough, he was pulling those pallet jacks around.
Good for him.
Leela was down on the food line distributing food to the people. And so they had a good time.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And it's good that the whole gang is in on it. And yeah, it's an important thing for them to see and know that, these are the things that we should do without having to be asked, or told to do things. But I want to ask you about something else that happened in Burnsville. And you might know where I'm going with this. And you can answer this however you want or not at all. What were your thoughts on the helicopter incident?
So there's two theories floating around out there, and I'm sure the internet has a whole bunch of stuff. And so when we got up there, the Cajun Navy was there in the parking lot. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that.
Okay.
Because, I don't know them guys and what they're capable of.
Let's not incriminate ourselves or anyone else.
Yeah. So it was... Some people said it was them in retaliation for them having to leave the area or something like that. So I don't know how a group like that gets an asset like a Black Hawk.
Well, that's where did the Cajun Navy get a Black Hawk?
Yeah, exactly. And another story I heard, it was the National Guard coming to deliver generators. But being military, I think they'd have enough common sense to see people on the ground like...
You can see right from the bird.
Oh, yeah, you can't land here. There's, literally... Yeah. They did have, a landing zone spray painted on the parking lot, but it wasn't open. Like, there were cars parked there. So it didn't... There's no way they could have been like, oh, we can possibly get a bird right there.
Right.
No, there was no chance of that at all. So the whole thing was just really fishy, And,
it seems like it.
Yeah.
Was it as bad as it looked on all the videos?
The tents blew. One guy was up there grilling. Like, some people came to cook for the volunteers.
Right.
Lost his grills. They got destroyed because the rotor wash. The lady we were working with, Whitney, got pushed to the ground, and she crawled under a truck to try to, avoid any more craziness. Yeah. But it happens real quick. So
and the rotor wash from a Black Hawk is way more intense than what you see in the movies. Like, it's insane.
Yeah. I wasn't too close, but when we were at Floyd Springs Baptist Church, they had the medical helicopter come in and just for the kids to see. And we stood across the parking lot, and when they came in slow and, not real fast. And you can, the force of that was strong enough. But in that video of the helicopter in Burnsville, you see them lower down, and then they thrust upwards real fast.
Yeah.
And so that really threw it down. And that's what...
Well, that was my thought. I went to college at North Georgia up in Dahlonega, which is funny. But it was a military school, which I guess it still is. But it was nothing for a group of Black Hawks to land on the big field in the middle of campus on some random Tuesday afternoon. Like, they knew what they were doing, but they would just show up. They'd do touch and goes and whatever. So I've been there, got kind of close by on the ground, and I thought it was odd that they would lower like that and then just blast off again all of a sudden.
So that's the whole thing was kind of fishy. I
Yeah.
had no idea who it was. So
I don't know. I'd read that it was a National Guard pilot, but, you know, who knows?
yeah, we haven't had like an official story on it yet.
Well, and we won't ever.
Oh, yeah. Ever.
They're
ever.
never going to let us in on that.
No.
But I don't know. It gave us something to talk about, I guess.
And then after that incident, I have like so many videos on my phone because I filmed every single helicopter after that. Because
Oh, yeah.
you just never know, because it was like an airfield up there. They never landed in the parking lot since then, you know. But I have Chinooks and Blackhawks and personal helicopters because
Oh, wow.
they were running missions, dropping supplies, getting into like reach, trap people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool to see all the aircraft, but it was, you know, for unfortunate events.
Yeah. But was that the only thing of that sort that happened while you were there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, National Guard rolled through a couple times, but they didn't cause a scene. I saw one FEMA dude, and that was in a town an hour away in Newland. We went and tried to reach some people in a town called Minneapolis. The road was washed out, and so we grabbed the chainsaws and started, you know, hiking back this road that was washed out real bad to try to cut some of the trees away so the equipment can get in there. But other than that, I didn't see FEMA there at all. There was word of them around, but they weren't there.
The boogeyman was hiding.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I was listening on the way out here on the radio. There was a sheriff up there that was like, "Stop throwing rocks at the FEMA people."
Yeah, I saw something where there was a threat made to them.
Yeah.
And they had to pull out. And
Yeah. Well, it was, according to this report, they were going after these FEMA people and, you know, whatever that meant. But it turned out that it was the Cajun Navy and it wasn't FEMA at all, which I don't necessarily believe either because you know, this was a mainstream media news report. So who knows? But God bless FEMA, man. I've been on the ground with those dudes before. God bless FEMA. So they just weren't around at all in Burnsville?
I didn't see a single one.
Wow. I mean, I guess they were somewhere doing something. It just wasn't. I mean, it wasn't like you guys didn't have it under control.
Right.
And maybe they knew that and just didn't bother.
Yeah.
But I know they before have confiscated supplies and been like, we're going to distribute the supplies. And that's why the rock throwing thing came up. Because I've seen that happen before. These people in this town in West Virginia were throwing rocks at the FEMA people, and the National Guard had to come in to keep the FEMA people safe.
Yeah.
While they were trying anyway. But I guess it's probably good that you didn't have to deal with those dudes, and y'all just got to do things on your own and didn't get regulated.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. So are you planning on going back?
I would like to. You know, I don't know if it'll work out this time, but I met a local guy up there. His name's Jeremiah, and we're staying in touch. And he told me the other day that all the donations that were coming in got redirected to a different warehouse that was under control of the National Guard. Mm. And so I haven't heard back from him yet to see if he got any more info on, what's going on. Are they trying to take the supplies or what? So who knows? So
who's going back? Floyd Springs is sending another group back.
Yeah, I think they're going to go up and do actually like carpentry work on houses and try to. I think that's what the pastor was
I know
doing.
Billy made a post about it day before yesterday, maybe a day before that. But
and he was looking for a trailer for somebody to haul hay up there now too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we've got a trailer.
Well, I think he's looking for like a 5-ton truck or something. I forget. Yeah. So if you know anybody,
I know a guy.
All right.
We'll make it happen.
Cool.
Billy, if you're watching, if you're listening, by the time this comes out, he may already be gone. I'll just call Billy tomorrow. Make it happen. But I think my guy has already been in contact with Billy about this next trip. But I would like to go. I can't right now. I wish I could. But I don't know. People should. It's going to be an ongoing thing. Like it's not going to wrap up next week.
Yeah, no, and especially with the cold weather coming, a big need they need is generators, cold weather gear, buddy heaters. That was a big thing that was coming in. As soon as like a minute we would get them in, they'd be going out because people need them.
Well, you were there. I mean, it was the first days of the fall when we were seeing like 40-degree temperatures.
Yeah.
Which is not the end of the world, but like you don't want your kids sleeping in that.
No.
Especially not in the house.
The kids camped with us, and when we woke up, there was frost on the ground. But,
yeah.
You know, we had good sleeping bags, some wool blankets. You stayed warm.
Yeah, all your stuff hadn't gotten washed away.
Yeah. But if you don't have anything, I mean, that's a horrible situation to be in. So.
Yeah. Be ready. And be ready to help.
Yeah. That's the one thing, too, is like, it's good to have your stuff taken care of for you and your family, but if we just focus on ourselves, we're missing the big part of love your neighbor and like being able to help other people. So that's important to not lose focus of.
Yeah. Tell us about your church.
So, like I said before, we're a Messianic congregation. We used to be with Beth Shalom Rome.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that. And we used to meet at Unity, and it kind of closed its doors, certain situations. And some of the members asked if I would lead, a small group. And so I said, sure, I'll do that. And I talked to Pastor Billy and told him the situation. And he's like, I know a place you guys could meet. I was like, where's that? And he's like, right here at Floyd Springs in the gym. I was like, oh, cool. So we've been meeting there since last March. So we've been going a year and a half now. It's just a small little congregation. That's all.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We kind of do more of a discussion instead of like a sermon. I'll do an outline, like a slideshow of the scriptures that we're going to be talking about. And we just kind of walk through it. And if somebody has a comment and they have a question, feel free to ask. And we'll go about an hour and a half each Saturday. So we meet on Shabbat and
That's awesome, man. What time of day do you guys meet?
11.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys take visitors?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're always trying to get people.
I didn't know that wasn't a thing until recently. I just assumed that every church was cool with visitors, but then I met somebody who had planted a church, and they had like a group of people, same kind of thing. They were like, hey, let's start a church, and a group of them, and they weren't accepting visitors yet.
That's kind of weird.
It was super weird.
Yeah.
And they are now, and they've opened the door. I think their explanation was they kind of wanted to get everything in place and get continuity and then start bringing people in. But I was like, I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, in the first church, they were added numbers, were added to them daily.
Yeah. And they're meeting in homes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. God bless them. I don't know. But they got visitors now.
Oh, I mean, that's good.
So I feel like I have to ask now for somebody's church, especially new-ish churches, and go, you guys letting visitors in? That in the snake handling church one time, they didn't like visitors either. That's a different podcast for a different time. But, man, I won't keep you here all night, but it's been fun.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. Your insight was great. It was good to have a first-hand perspective of what it's like on the ground in North Carolina after this hurricane, and maybe we'll get to go back up there.
Yeah, if you get the opportunity to do it, then definitely. Even if it's just for a couple of days, it doesn't have to be in Burnsville. I mean, there's so many. Oh, there's so many areas that are impacted. So
yeah, like do you have a contact point up there? Or you just show up and look for opportunities? Yeah,
that's kind of how it was with Burnsville.
Yeah.
We were told who to link up with, and so we linked up with this other family guy that was up there with this other group, but they ended up leaving, and they're like, go over here and talk to this guy Luke, and he'll tell you what to do. And so then Luke, we worked with him a couple of days, and then he left and went home, and so it's like, oh, here's pass the buck to you now, because I left and you know what to do, and so it's just kind of
gotta train your replacement.
Yeah, the longer you stay there, the higher up you get, and delegating and doing things. So it's pretty interesting.
Well, cool, man. Well, I think that's where we'll jump off.
Cool.
But like I said, I've enjoyed it. It's been awesome. I'm glad we finally got to sit down and chat for a little while.
Yeah, for sure. It was fun.
Good deal. God bless you guys. We love you. See you next time.